The easiest way to go would be Kirk Cousins because, just a lack of any type of body of work as far as the playoffs are concerned. But I think that even if Kirk Cousins wins this game, it doesn't change my perspective on him. I think he's still, a guy who's put up bloated stats and really hasn't accomplished anything. I'm going to go with Drew Brees here. And I think, one, because of the time is ticking on Drew Brees' career. He's been one of the most prolific quarterbacks in the history of the National Football League. His last Super Bowl appearance and Super Bowl win was back in 2009. And when I look at this whole thing, I'm looking at legacy here because I look at in this generation of quarterbacks, you got Tom Brady, you got Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers. Okay, where does Drew Brees fit into that body of those four quarterbacks? And I think if Drew Brees can rise to the occasion, whether it be this game or ultimately ascend to winning the Super Bowl, I think now we start talking about Drew Brees in a different light. So I'm going to give the pressure, give this nod to Drew Brees.
I mean, you said the easy. Just because it's easy don't mean it's wrong. Sometimes easy is right.
It's not going to change. It's not going to change. Yes, it's not going to change your perspective.
It's not going.
Winning this one is not going to change your perspective on Kirk Cousins.
Who needs this win more? So if Drew Brees wins tonight or tomorrow Sunday, it's going to change my perspective on Drew Brees? No. If Kirk Cousins wins, that's going to be his first big win of his career, his first playoff win, his first big game win. It's going to be the first time we can put that behind us that he's not a big game quarterback, or at least we can start to put that behind us. Nothing's going to change for Drew Brees. Frankly, I don't think the story about Drew Brees changes that much if he wins another Super Bowl because Drew Brees means more to this league than just winning championships because of what happened in New Orleans. When Drew Brees not if, obviously when he goes into the Hall of Fame, the story of Drew Brees' career is going to be how he is the leader in almost all the important passing categories, and also how he saved New Orleans, frankly. How after Katrina, he won a championship right there. That matters, because when we get far enough away from this, that's what the story about Drew Brees is going to be. Winning another championship would be nice to measure up against these other guys, but I frankly don't think it impacts Drew Brees' legacy that much, and he can't win a championship this weekend. Kirk Cousins, on the other hand, he can win a big game for the first time, and then it could lead to potentially getting another win and maybe making it down. And if he wins 2 or 3 playoff games, we then can no longer say that Kirk Cousins doesn't play well in the big moments. It's not even close to me. It means more to Cousins than Brees.
Well, I think Kirk Cousins is trying to, get the big game. Now he's not a big game player off his resume, but also I think he's trying to justify the fact that he got the first guaranteed contract and he hasn't lived up to it. But if I have to go big picture, I have to go Drew Brees simply because Drew Brees is, playing for his legacy. He wants to move up. I think he's taking it personal, the fact that he wasn't on that top 100 list. I think, he's a super competitive player that's been overlooked, in his career for the entire time. We don't put him in that rarefied air with Marino, with Elway, with Brady, with Rodgers. With Rodgers. I think if he gets the second Super Bowl title, it's going to put him in that area. He understands that time is running out because they're thinking they're 2 years behind schedule because they've had disappointing losses before. The hardest thing to do is to be the favorite and go live up to the expectations. We've been putting that, the New Orleans Saints should be the favorite for the Super Bowl since the beginning of the season, in the NFC, and they didn't disappoint us. And they've been all in. I mean, they've been trading first-round draft picks, future first-round draft picks. They understand that he has Teddy Bridgewater breathing behind his neck because you can't hold on for him, and eventually they're going to have to make that transition. They know that Sean Payton's going to be there for a while.
I guess the distance that somebody can travel as far as our perception is concerned is much greater for Cousins than it is for Brees. Like, we may not think that Brees is as good as Brady because he got 6 championships. He's not going to win 6 championships.
He's trying to catch Peyton.
I think he's in that conversation. Educated football minds know that Peyton Manning does not deserve a ton of credit necessarily for that last Super Bowl. Like, Brees and Peyton are kind of the same tier. When you look at it, when you think about it, the careers were different because Peyton was believed to be great when he came in and stayed with one franchise. Brees has gone through a little bit more ups and downs and switched franchises. But at the end of the day, I think he's in that category as far as, don't you guys think of that?
Listen, rings count. Woody makes more money than us because he has 2 Super Bowl rings.
Oh. Is that the only reason?
Don't listen to Bart. Don't listen to Bart. But listen, my whole premise is just based on legacy here. Because if the New Orleans Saints don't get past the Minnesota Vikings, I think that's a blow to Drew Brees' legacy in this point. Drew Brees, to me, wants to be in that same tier as the Tom Brady's and the Peyton Manning and even Aaron Rodgers. And I think if he advances past the game and ultimately gets to a Super Bowl and wins it, I think we elevate Drew Brees another notch in this whole conversation as far as generational quarterbacks.
That's fine. If rings is the way you're measuring it, there's nothing you can do to catch Tom Brady. Tom Brady is in a category all by himself.
Right.
I guess maybe you could say Joe Montana with 4 is close to that. But if that's the way you're measuring it, there's nothing you can do to catch that. And I think that, too, for Peyton, we all agree that Peyton's second Super Bowl, like while it goes on his resume, we don't say it's because of him. He did the best he could to lose that game, frankly. So I think that he is on the same tier with Peyton Manning. I think that's fair to say. But I think we all think of him as a top 5 all-time quarterback, or at worst, top 10 all-time quarterback.
He didn't make the top 100 list, man.
I mean, that don't mean I gotta respect that list. Do you think that he's not in that category? I think what they count in that list a lot of other things that they might be irrelevant. I think he fits that category. I think right now we think Kirk Cousins is a guy that brings this team down. Whether it's true or false, that's the perception that is given to him. A guy that once you get to big games and get big situations, he's a stat stuffer and he's going to choke in a big moment. I don't necessarily think that's true, but he can make a big leap if he wins this weekend. We'll think about him differently on Monday if he wins. Drew Brees, if he wins this weekend, it's still Drew Brees. He's still one of the greatest of all times. This weekend, like, I guess it matters for him to get to the Super Bowl, but it's really not going to have that much of an impact on the way that we perceive Drew Brees in his career, frankly, in the same way that it will for Kirk Cousins. I feel like this was easy. I'm confused why I'm all by myself. I'm sure everybody at home agrees with me.
Because you're the contrarian. You like being on that island.
This is not contrarian.
That's what you live to do anyway.
I do.
Well, let me ask you this. Since you think that Kirk Cousins is under more pressure, what chance are you giving the Vikings to beat the Saints this weekend?
Slim. Slim. I think it's unlikely, which is also why I think he deserves it, or why he needs it more.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app.
And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.